I am so excited today because we have the special honor and privilege of having Anthony in the house today. And Anthony is an enterprise sales professional. So he's generated over 50 million in sales revenue. It's my favorite thing to talk about. And what I know is that you can't be good in sales or great in sales. You can't generate 50 million in revenue if you don't love it, right? So we're going to break this down. I want Anthony to dive into a lot of topics today, really the mindset of what it takes to be good in sales. We're going to go into prospecting, which I love talking about. And I don't think people in sales talk about enough, right? You know, Anthony, I believe that salespeople today are getting lazy. Like we want someone to give us something to do, but that's not sales.
No.
Sales is like a hunter mentality. You got to be hungry. You got to know how to prospect. So if we can dive into that, but I'm so happy that you're here today. I'm happy to have this conversation with you because we're talking about how does an ordinary person, I'm an ordinary person, I have become extraordinary through selling. It really is the conduit that has allowed me to, heighten my life and my living. And I believe that to be true for yourself. But if you could share a little bit of a background about how, selling provided this for you to move from ordinary to extraordinary, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. 50 million, when you say it's a large number, but it's taken me a while to get there. But listen, I'm with you. Like, selling for me was the only way out, right? So I grew, just a high level, I grew up in a single family home, grew up in a poor neighborhood, poor area. I barely graduated high school. I remember, I was working at a hot dog stand after high school, for real, like really, like a fast food restaurant. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I started to look around and think about like, how was I actually going to make it in this world, right? How was I going to create income for myself? How was I going to put myself in a position to have a family and be successful, right? I was never going to be a doctor. I was never going to be an attorney or all those things that society told you that you needed to be successful, and create, income for yourself, or, high income. And as I started to look around, sales was really my only option. So, I just started to really self-educate myself on selling, because I started to realize that the number one thing for any company, in any organization, in any vertical, is new customers and generating revenue, right? So once I started to wrap my head around that, I really just spent the last 25 years mastering the sales game, and I'm still learning every day. But yeah, I'm with you. That's the number one thing. And I coach all the time with people. If you don't know what you're going to do, if you don't know what you want to do, learn how to sell. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to sell so you can become valuable into the marketplace, because there's nothing more valuable than a salesperson that can generate revenue for a company. And once you do that, the sky's the limit. You know what I'm saying?
That's so amazing. So, you know what was so great about 2020 is that that was proof of how valuable salespeople are.
Yeah.
And, it really is like when you talk about job security, salespeople, we create our own job security by bringing extreme value, by having that mentality of a hunter's mentality. And you specialize in prospecting, you specialize in the art of cold calling, which I love. I love, I love, I love. And most people, it's our fears that rob us of where we're supposed to be in life. And when people hear that term cold calling, like I get warm, excited, and happy. Most people get cold, they clam up, and they're like, I don't want to do this. I want nothing to do with this. But really, if you don't feed the hunter in a salesperson, you
Mhm.
will die in sales, because it's really about, you say it's two things. You get more from the customer you have, or you have to be able to generate and create new. Either way, you have to bring extreme value. Could you talk on that? Like just the importance of being able to understand that prospecting is a major, major part of the sales game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I are definitely, we think a lot alike. I can already tell, because when you talk about 2020, was difficult, and salespeople kind of either listen, the top salespeople who were prospecting the previous 12, 15 months prior to COVID hitting, they're the ones that were able to stay in the game. The bottom 10% of people who are just skating by on, say, a great product or skating by on a good economy and not prospecting and literally just maybe taking orders or fulfilling orders or whatever that sounds like in your environment, they're gone, right? They're out of here. So prospecting is the number one thing that is going to propel salespeople into that top 1%. The ones that continue to prospect daily, have their daily disciplines, and continue to go out and find new opportunities as opposed to waiting for opportunities to come for them, are always going to separate themselves from the pack. So for you, when you get warm and fuzzy about cold calling, because that's your differentiator. Like, listen, if you took everything away from me, just the fact and knowledge and skill set I have around prospecting and cold calling, I could easily build it all back up. You understand what I'm saying? Totally. Somebody who doesn't have that skill set is going to die because they don't know how to go out and drum up their own business. It's literally the number one differentiator in any game.
Yeah. And, we're always taught, it's kind of embedded into us, like stranger danger. And I feel like as people age, as they get older, like this is why people become so apprehensive about connecting and communicating with people. And this is something that people don't have it naturally. It's something you cultivate from within. It's something that it's a skill that you develop. And why that's so awesome is because if you look at in the past, how could you possibly go from ordinary to extraordinary? You had to be born into a family, had to have a good name. Like if you weren't a part of the aristocrats, then you weren't even gonna make it. But you can build a name through selling. And if you can touch on that about, why do you have to really practice and never ever get that? I call it a virus, which is the most deadly virus. It's the I have arrived virus.
Oh
and
my God.
when you're in selling, when you're in sales and you feel like I don't need to do this anymore, you get slapped in the face. We say like the marketplace is going to punish you bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can touch on that, why you always have to keep this mindset of abundance when you're in selling versus the scarcity mindset. Because if you come into sales with a scarcity mindset, thinking I need this, then I can do this, and you don't have this abundance of I'm able to generate, I'm a producer, I can produce the goods, build my name, then you're starting with a really bad start, and it just gets more and more difficult because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you can touch on that, why you need to have an abundance mindset when you're in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote a book on, my mindset, right? And my keys to an unshakable mindset. You can go catch it on Amazon. And you touched on 2 points that I already hit in my book. One is overcoming fear, right? The fear of doing anything, right? Cold calling, whatever that looks like, you have to break down that fear. And as you do it more, you'll get better at it, right? And you'll that fear will kind of go away. And then 2 is having an abundance mindset is there's always 2 perspectives to look at anything: the world, your environment, your career, and that's either I'm at effect of my environment, right? Like whatever happens around me is going to affect me, or I'm going to create my environment. You understand what I'm saying? So that abundance mindset and having that mindset to where, listen, I don't care what's going on around me. The world's not going to push me around. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to sit here and wait on somebody to knock on my door. I'm not going to sit here and wait for my phone to ring. Like, no, I'm going to create this environment. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to make my dials. I'm going to go out, knock on my doors. You know what I'm saying? So that is the abundance mindset, and having the creator and the hunter mentality, right? To go out and just create your future, create your environment. You know what I'm saying? That's the mindset. And then the second thing you said was, I can't remember the second thing you said there. I was going to touch on, but I can't remember it. So anyway, go ahead.
No, it really is just.
Oh, I remembered if you want me to go.
Yeah, for sure. Go.
So you said, what's the one thing that you say people say that they have arrived, right? And then they stop doing the things that got them there. The marketplace is going to come and slap you around. The number one, I would say driver for me is always trying to outdo what I did the previous year or the previous quarter or however you measure your success, right? Last year, I had my best year ever in both of my businesses. My one business, I generated over $12 million worth of revenue. My other business, we did over $100,000 in revenue. So one's a startup and one we've been around for 50 years, right? So a little bit different there. But anyways, all in all, I had my best year ever. So my driver this year, I'm not like, oh, we had a great year. You know what I'm saying? Like my biggest fear internally is resting on my laurels. So now I'm just double down. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not sitting around, being like, oh, we had a great year. Let's celebrate. That's just really my personality anyway. I have tough time celebrating, too much anyway, just because it's like, in sales, it's like you're only as good as what you did, your last month or your last quarter. So that's something I'm working on, actually. I'm working on like being able to reflect and be like, damn, we did do this or we did do that. And that was really awesome, instead of just being like, okay, back at it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to work on that part of it.
Yeah. And I think, it's a relationship that you have to develop with yourself, where you start to push yourself as opposed to you feel like you're being pushed from an outside source. And once that connects, once that you align with like, I want more, then you can take off almost effortlessly. And I really wanted to, dive into this because a lot of people are in that state where, they feel like they're doing enough. And in sales, I always tell people like, you've got to bring more than what you think you're bringing to the game. And, every day, do you prospect? Do you carve it out? Is it something that you put attention into? And when I say every day, I mean every day. On your birthday, yes. On Christmas, are you prospecting?
Yeah.
I don't care. Like every day means every day. And we go into this mindset of thinking like, well, people don't know, I'm busy, I have this. But if it's not important to you, then it's not going to work. If you can touch on that, just the consistency of what it takes to build up that repetition, to build up the skills that are required to excel in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's three things. The first thing is mindset, which you touched on, right? You have to have the right mindset. You have to be able to overcome fear. You have to be able to look at challenges as opportunities, and you have to have this abundance mindset, right? That's the first thing. I think the second thing is you have to have a clear path and plan on how you want to get to where you want to go. And the number one thing at the top of that plan has to be activity, sales activity. And for you and I, and what we're talking about in this conversation is prospecting, right? The third thing that's going to separate everybody is the consistent discipline of that activity. Okay, so any sales environment, anywhere you go, whatever business industry you're in, whatever vertical in you, I guarantee you the top producers are getting up and doing that consistent disciplined action every day, even when they don't feel like it. That's the biggest differentiator, right? Is doing the shit you don't want to do, even when you don't feel like it, right? You have to do it. It doesn't matter. And here's what happens, Sabrina, is people don't see the immediate results. So they quit, they give up. You know what I'm saying? So you may prospect, say you block out, you carve out an hour a day and you're going to hit the phones, right? And you're going to do it the way that you just said. You're going to be engaged. You're going to be disciplined. You're going to shut your door, turn off your phone notifications, clear your desk. You know what I'm saying? Get into a rhythm, start hitting those calls, right? They do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? They may do it for 2 or 3 weeks, right? And they don't see any immediate results. So they're like, well, fuck, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not seeing any results. But what you and I know is that, you know what I'm saying? You may see results 6 months from now. You may do it for 6 months straight, see nothing, and then pop. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like 3 big deals. You know what I'm saying? So you have that third piece of it, which is the consistent discipline. Like that's really the biggest differentiator. And then I tell salespeople all the time, and this is what you said just a few minutes ago. You said you wake up and you're only, you know what I'm saying? You have to outdo yourself, or you have to, you have to put yourself out in the marketplace. No salesperson that's in a job or a sales position right now, their manager or their company should never have higher goals than they have for themselves. Like if your manager is like, you need to do whatever in revenue, like your goal should be 2, 3, 5 times that, just off top. You know what I'm saying? So I always tell people, nobody could ever want more out of me than I want out of myself. You know what I'm saying? No one can ever expect more out of me than I already expect out of myself. You know what I'm saying? That should be the mentality.
Yeah. And, in terms of that's what I was saying, where people get that feeling of like, I'm being forced to work. You don't get into sales to work. You get into sales to build a life that you couldn't get from just working anywhere else. And so what you touched on is so incredibly important, because in the initial stages of selling, you have to plug in, you have to be consistent, regardless of whatever results you're seeing in that moment in time. You got to plug in. And there's a saying, like, this is when you're making an investment into yourself so you can get paid more in the future. And a lot of times people are so used to that dynamic of, I work, I get paid, I work, I get paid. But that's not how sales goes. Sales is like work, 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 work. Your pay is like work, work, work. And then all of a sudden you're working, and your pay starts to escalate. And you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that $50,000 ACH. Where did that come from? Right? But you got to be okay with like getting the $50 sale. And sometimes you feel like you're spending more than you're receiving. What would you give as advice to people that are in the beginning stage of, I'm doing so much and I'm not getting a return? Because the returns are stored up when you're in sales. So what advice would you give?
Yeah, it's the law of increasing returns, which basically, it's a universal law that, I don't know if that's real or not, but it's what I coach and teach. It's like, it's the law of increasing returns. There's always going to be a point. There's always going to be a tipping point, right? So in the beginning, you're always working for less than you get paid, right? And then there's a tipping point to where, and you and I know this, where you're going to work less and get paid more. But you have to fight through this initial part. It's with anything in life. It's how much value do you provide to the marketplace, right? It has to happen. I do it in my business too. Like there'll be times where, I'll go into a business, I'll say, listen, let me look at your leads, let me look at what you're doing, and I'll work for free, just to show them that we can actually provide an ROI for them. We'll work for free for an amount of time. And then once you prove your results, you have to get paid. The customer has to say, damn, okay, well, I'll pay you. That's the law of increasing returns, right? So you provide value, right? And you don't get paid for what you're bringing to the table, but then there's a tipping point to where you get paid more for working less. That's how sales is, right?
Yep.
So when you get that 50, K ACH, right? And you're like, damn, I wasn't, right? It's because you provided enough value up to the tipping point. That's a universal law that you can use in any business environment, not just sales.
Yeah. And I'm giving this as an example, but for some people, it could be a contract. Like you've been grinding it out for almost a year, doing so many free things. And then someone is offering you, tens of thousands of dollars for, an hour of your professional time. And you're like, wait, where did that come from? Well, it came from all those hours of work and the discipline that you put into yourself. So I love this. And really what you're doing is you're building your freedom. And if we could talk about that, because today, I think a lot of people feel trapped, and I think it's so easy to like lull yourself into complacency and to say like, let me just wait for this to ride out. But I'm like, no, are you kidding me? This is when you push back and you fight harder. You've got to like have some sort of conviction about why you're doing what you're doing. And it should be to have that freedom, to have that life. And that's why when you are doing well, you should never feel bad about it. You should never start to develop that scarcity mindset when it was abundance, that mindset that got you to where you are, because then it will unravel. So what could you speak to, like in terms of people that are top producers? where, you know, they are doing well. Why should they not get complacent? Why should they not quiet themselves? Why should you go even harder, push even more to rise to the next level?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just touched on it earlier on. I said, listen, we had our best year ever, and now we're doubling down, you know, to do even more. But I think it's for a couple things. One is you can't get complacent in anything. I think people sometimes have too short of a vision. Okay. I coach people always be thinking long term, right? In anything you do. And that touches on, you know, going into a business or going into, you know, a sales position where you put the work in and you don't see the results, you continue to grind it out because you have a long-term vision. Everybody should have a long game vision, right? I have a long game vision. Everything I do is somehow tied into a long game, right? So I'm not thinking in quarters, years, right? Even 3 years, right? I'm 5, 10, 15 years out, right? So I can't quit. I can't get complacent because my vision is too big. If you're getting complacent, then your vision's not big enough. You understand what I'm saying? If you're like, oh, I made 400,000 last year, right? I'm good. Then your vision's not big enough because you know what I'm saying? Like you can't get complacent if you have a big enough vision. I can't get complacent. You know what I'm saying? I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, right? My monthly expenses are 15K. You understand what I'm saying? 15,000. I can't get complacent, right? What my wife's a stay-at-home mom. We can't get complacent around here because I have a long vision, 20, 30 years, right? I'm trying to leave a legacy. You know what I'm saying? So if you're getting complacent and if you're in sales, then your vision's not big enough.
You know what I would also tell people, like this is something that I learned. I read your book, the Science of Persuasion, and I'm a huge science fan. Like I actually study a lot of the neurobiology of how the mind works. And when I came into sales,
You're getting too smart for me now. Hold on.
No, but I'll break it down. My gift is I can take the complex and keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to understand like how the mind works, how you overcome your fear is you have to do one thing. And a lot of people don't understand this, but when your mind is taking in information, it takes in 11 million bits of information every second. Like sit on that. That is just way too much, right? And so then it narrows it down to 2,000. And so what it scans for is two things. It scans for number one, your fears. Whatever you have inside of you that's a fear, it'll pick it up. And the second thing that it picks up is your goals. And so if you have no goals, your mind is only scanning for your fears.
Yeah,
and it will
that makes
attach
sense.
to your fears and it will resonate with you and it'll get you more and more scared. But if you have goals, it will override your fears and all that information that's out there, you will start to see things that align with your goals and you start to get yourself set free from your fears, right?
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't know that. I never heard that. But I do believe that if you have a crystal clear vision of where you want to go, things do start to align for you. And there's, you know, synchronicity and you know, things like that happen.
Yeah.
As long as you're putting in the daily activities and, you know, things will start to align for you. I absolutely 100% believe in that. But you have to be putting in the work.
Oh, yeah, totally. And, you know, you talk about like the steps for persuasion to happen, which is incredibly important because this is what selling is. Like a lot of people get very timid when they think like, well, I don't want to push someone. I don't want to control someone.
Yeah.
Well, why not? If you have something that is good, if you're in a better place, why wouldn't you want to influence someone to also be in a better place? Like then you're being selfish. Then you're trying to keep what you have for yourself. And you're actually operating from a scarcity mindset where you're thinking, well, I'll just keep more for myself then. Mm-hmm. But if you understand, and you talk about this in one of your books, like the role of competition is not what great people look at it like, right? We don't look at competitors and say like, oh, you actually threaten me. I look at people like, are you kidding me? You have no bearing on anything. Like,
that's right.
In fact, what you're doing, good for you, because it means like it's possible for anyone to do it. It's a complete mind shift instead of that scarcity. So if you can talk about, you know, just getting your mind right when we're talking about persuasion and being pushy is
Yep.
not something that you should have a negative association with unless something inside of you is negative, right? And then the second thing is just your mindset towards competition, if you can touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I talk about it all day. So yeah, there's two ways to look at things. I talked about this in the beginning, perception of any environment, right? So when you talk about competition, and you just touched on this, like, there's one guy who could look at somebody driving a Lamborghini and say, oh, he's driving a Lamborghini. Now that means I can't have it, right? That's a scarcity mindset. Somebody has something, which means they're taking it away from me, right? The other perception is, oh, that if that guy has a Lamborghini, I can get one too, right? So there's no there. That's the abundance mindset, right? So I would challenge people to, throughout your day, your thoughts, what you're telling yourself, the conversations you're having with yourself as you witness your environment. Think about that. Be conscious of that, because that'll really tell you kind of where you're at. I'm always inspired by what I see successful people doing. I don't take it as a threat. Because I feel like if they can do it, then I can do it too, right? And in sales, specifically, your competition is never the guy down the street, right? It's not the person. If you're selling insurance, it's status quo, right? It's what the customer is currently using, right? Can you provide enough value for them to switch products or switch services to yours? Your biggest competition is status quo. That's something to think about. It's really not the person down the street. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is, I had another thing and I lost it, but yeah, I can't remember. It was a good one too.
And if when you say this stuff, it really needs to resonate with people, because what you focus on is where you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're focused on what someone else is doing, you're just giving them more of your attention. But if you look at your customer and say, listen, your current state that you're in right now is my competition, and I'm going to go after that. I'm going to attack that. I'm going to make that be the thing that I override, influence, impact, and shred, so that you are in a better state. Because you said something about when you're dealing with customers, where we look at someone and we say, like, well, do they need what we have? You can't look at it that way. You got to identify their pain.
Yeah,
Identify
exactly.
their pain. So if you can talk about that, when you're good at selling, you look at someone and you find their pain, and that's what you compete with.
Yep, I'm going to touch on that, but I did remember what I was going to say. For the number one, this is the touch on your previous topic. The number one thing, the biggest limiting belief of any salesperson is that they're being too pushy, right? So you touched on this just a couple seconds ago. They're being too pushy, right? And this is a mindset shift as well. So instead of thinking, well, I'm going to be pushy and I'm trying to sell this person something. No, like, we're salespeople, we're problem solvers. We're here to help, right? If I have a product or service that I know can help you reduce your costs or increase your profitability or make you sleep better at night, whatever that is, right? I would be doing a disservice to you, Sabrina, if I did not continue to educate you on how I could help you, right? So I'm not being pushy. I'm here to help. I'm a problem solver, right? And I am going to do my best to get you out of your own way so that I can help you achieve your goals, whatever those are, right? So that's the mindset shift around being pushy. But the number one limiting belief of any salesperson is that they think they're being too pushy, and they have to really believe in their product, their service, and know that they're there to help. And once you get around that, then all that pushiness stuff goes away, right? So I wanted to touch on that too, because you hit on that. And then what was the last question?
And, not to escape that, but just like, this is why you have to have such deep level of value and belief in what you do. And, where that gets cultivated is when you are starting something, like when you're new in your career and you invest those man hours into studying and knowing everything about your product. You talked about in one of your books, you said, like, find the underlying issue when you're dealing with a business. Like, if you're selling to a business, don't just go to them and say, I want to give you my product and services because it can save you money. everyone says that. Like,
Yep.
how do you stand apart from the competition? Like, what is an underlying cause that's causing them to spend or waste or not watch their money, that you can
Mhm.
add value, that you can, help to suffocate that issue so that it produces more net income for them at the end of the year, and they
Yeah, I love
see
that.
it in a better way. You know, if you can talk about just, what I said about identifying the pain,
Yeah.
like identifying the pain in the customer, if it's a business, if it's a person, that's what you go after. That's what you attack. And you should feel so happy about that. If I'm a doctor, I'm here to attack your pain. I'm not looking at Dr. Schmo over there like, you're my competition, I want more patients than you. No, I'm looking at my customer and saying, your pain is my enemy and I'm going to kill it dead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest issues for salespeople too, is they don't dig in to the pain enough, right? So, anytime you're doing a discovery call or you're having a new customer meeting or whatever that is, I mean, you have to set the expectation up front. Like, hey, listen, Sabrina, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today, but I'm really, I need to understand what your goals are, and I really need to understand what your challenges are so that I can, hopefully put together a solution that's going to help you, right? So I'm going to have to ask you some questions, and I hopefully we can have a good conversation here, and I can get to the root of your problems or whatever that is. So you have to set the expectation up front, right? And I think so many salespeople who aren't successful, they just go in, they ask some surface level questions, they go right to their product and start talking about features and benefits, and really you want to spend more time asking questions, good quality questions, and you want the prospect to be talking more than you are, right? Especially early on. And people will appreciate that. I think people get, salespeople, they get funny because they feel like they're probing or asking too many questions. But as a customer myself, right? Right. I appreciate when people are asking me like, you have to ask hard questions. How are you ever going to put together a solution if you're not asking hard questions to get to the root of the problem, right? So it goes into the breaking down the fears again. Being able to ask hard questions to really dig into the pains, is super, super important.
This is really funny because when I was first in sales, I've been in sales now for 15 years. I've been able to do very well with it and then teach people how to do well in sales. But when I was first starting off, like, I never realized how much I would dig into a customer. Like, I would literally hunt them down. If something happened to their policy, I would
Yeah.
stake them out. I would go find them. I would go wait for them. And I always would say, like, if all else fails, I'll make a badass private investigator, right? I'm literally like knowing everything about them. I know what time they get home from work. And what that really is in selling is something that I've been putting a lot of attention and focus on lately. It's follow up, right?
Yeah.
People in selling, if all you're thinking the sale is just that initial confrontation, and when I say confrontation, like communication with
Yeah.
them, that's not it. Like,
Uh,
it is seeing it all the way to the end. And you got to know what your sales cycle, where it starts and where it finishes, but the follow-up that is, embedded into that process is what makes you a fortune. You
oh
know,
my gosh, yes.
so just understanding this and really making sure that the follow-up is there. You can't follow up on something you don't know, you don't
Right.
understand. And so just having that want to learn about your customer, I think, is really, really powerful. So then you don't feel bad about the influence and the persuasion, because you're really there to help them. You're there to pull them to a different place, which I love. And so when we get back into, the science of persuasion, you also talked about something that I really love, because in the past, how did people get ahead? You mentioned this. You talked about brute force, right? You talked about before there was no talking. In fact, we didn't even talk as a species. We were like, we gave a look and then we would just attack, right?
Yeah.
It was brute force. And so as civilization happened, we changed the way we influence, right? And so this is what evolved into politics and knowing who has authority and who has influence over the situation. And so in selling, you have to know who the decision maker is. You have to know who has the ultimate authority. Sometimes you're presenting to someone, they could be the buyer, but they could not be, there could be another decision maker that you have to involve. So if you could talk about that, like you've got to be so good in sales right now, because if you're not good, the marketplace will spit you out right now. And it's only keeping, it's scrubbing. Every time there's a recession or unemployment spikes, what that means is that the economy is scrubbing the lame people.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And so if you're lame and selling and you're just doing what you should be doing, you might make a living, but you're not living, right? And so if you could touch on that, like why you have to get so good right now. It's what you did in the past to sell. It's not okay anymore. You got to step your game up. You got to really know, you got to know who you're talking to, know who's making the decision, and go deeper now. If you could address that, where you talk about three things, you talk about likability, reciprocity, and consistency. If you can touch on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of my revenue it comes from Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. And the reason why I talk about sales cycle and knowing who your buyers are, who influences deals, who signs off on deals, those types of things is super important, right? Our sales cycle in the enterprise sales game is anywhere between 12 and 24 months, right? That's a long time, right? And these organizations are very complex. They have thousands of locations across the country, and they have multiple decision makers throughout the organization. There's a technical buyer, there's a user buyer, there's an IT guy, there's someone who's actually going to be using your product, there's the CFO who's looking at, ROI, things like that. There's the person procurement who's grinding your price down. There's all these different things, right? So it's super important that you actually go into these organizations and you do your due diligence. You understand all the key players in the deal. If you don't, I've seen salespeople lose deals all the time because they're being lazy, right? They think they got one person and they're going to sign off on the deal, but come to find out, there's 6 other people that they didn't touch base with that are going to influence that deal. It's very, very important. So using, the 3 things, likability, reciprocity, and consistency within that context is important. So likability really just comes down to trying to build a relationship with somebody outside of the deal, right? Finding out what really drives them, right? Whether it's, what do they really want? Why do they really want to buy or make a change with this product within their organization? Do they want more influence within the organization? Do they want to put a feather in their hat? Do they want more time off to spend with their kids? Do they want more power within the organization? There's something going on there. So you have to find some common ground with people, right? And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators with great salespeople is they can talk to somebody like you, Sabrina, or they can go talk to somebody who likes, I don't know, maybe they're a hard rock and roll fan. They like Metallica, or somebody over here likes to play golf, or this lady over here likes Hermes bags, right? You have to find some common ground with all kinds of different people to create some likability, right? And I think finding common ground is super, super important. And the way you do that is you just become educated, right, on a lot of different things, right? Yeah. You can't pigeonhole yourself into just being the guy who likes the Lakers and drinks Bud Lights with his buddy on weekends, right? You got to expand read some books, man. Watch some movies. I don't know.
Anthony, this is so major, especially for women. Do you know how many things that I had to dive into that men love that I'm like, I don't give a fuck about this, but I'm learning about it. I learn about so many things because I can hang and I can talk about things. I love
you have to build some common ground with people, right? So I think that's super important. The law of reciprocity is important too. And this goes back to what you and I said about providing value even without getting paid on it. There's something that's said about giving somebody without wanting anything in return, right? I do this a lot, right? I think giving people something in value. It doesn't have to be tangible, like something physical, like a gift, but giving something to somebody without wanting anything in return is the law of reciprocity. So you may be a decision maker within your organization, Sabrina, and we may be talking, and I may just give you like a report, right? I'll be like, you know what, Sabrina, we usually give this report out for $4.99. I'm going to, to some of our clients, I'm going to give it to you for free because I know it's going to help you within your organization, right? Just on the side, I might just give that to you. I don't make a big deal out of it, like copy everybody and their mom on the email, right? Now, I don't want anything in return, but the psychology behind that, okay, is when somebody gets something, no matter whether you ask for something in return or not, they feel indebted to that person, no matter what. Right. So that always helps. Right. And I'm not saying use it in a non-ethical way. I'm saying do it and provide value, but just know the law of reciprocity is real. Right. And then consistency. Consistency is about doing what you say you're going to do time and time and time and time again for your customers. Right. If you say you're going to do something, you show up, you do it, and you provide what you say you were going to provide. And over time, that builds trust. Right? If your customer knows that you have predictable behaviors and you do what you say you're going to do, and you're like, the time you're available is always consistent. Like if they text you or email or call you, they know you're going to return their emails or texts. Like your hours are consistent, your behaviors are consistent. They know you say you're going to do what you're going to do. That type of consistency builds trust, and that type of trust makes it very, very hard once you gain a customer to be penetrable to an outside influence, right? To another salesperson, another company, another product, another service, which is super important.
Yeah, especially today with so much technology. I can't emphasize this enough. Like what people need to work on more than ever before is becoming more human, connecting with people on a much deeper level. And when you talk about this likability, you also mentioned like when people like you, and everyone should really understand this. When people like you, they will listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. And when people don't like you, you could be saying all the greatest things. They're not going to listen to you because they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And, what people really like are authentic people. And I hate saying this word because it's so overused today, but it's really true. Like when you like yourself, when you know who you are, people fall in love with people like that. And so when you can be real, when you can be who you are and be proud of it, and it comes down to like, going all the way back to what selling is really about. When you fall in love with what selling does for an economy, for a country, for a business, for your family, where you can go from having nothing to building something, to living like no one else, you really you attach yourself to that, you fall in love it, you like it, then you listen to it more, right? You listen to sales, if someone's talking about sales, you gravitate towards it. This is why I love like our audience right now. They're selling lovers. So guess who's going to get better, right? And everyone else is like, oh, they're talking about sales. I don't want to talk about that. The other thing is like money. People are like, I don't want to talk about money. That's why you have none, right? Everyone with money loves talking about money, right? And they're like, don't talk about it. It's rude. No, it's not, right? And so selling is not rude. Money is not rude. You've got to fall in love with it. You've got to like it, and then you'll listen to it, and then you'll get better. So just everyone seeing like full circle how just the blessing of sales in your life. It's not just working in a sales position, but if you can, finish with this, how does it improve your life overall? Like when you're good at selling, you'll see that your relationships improve. You'll see that you attract a higher caliber of people. To be good in sales, your bullshit radar goes up really, really high, right? So then when you're having like crummy conversations with people, you're like, not me, buddy, not me, right? You just cut that stuff out instead of engaging in that nonsense, right? So how does selling improve outside of business? How does it improve our life? If I'm a teacher, how could learning about selling help me be better at my job? I believe it'll make you be a better teacher, right? Make you be a better plumber, make you be a better an accountant. So if you could, take us full circle of just the blessing that sales can give to your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first things first is like, there are so many bad connotations about selling. And I think there's a lot of salespeople that haven't taken the full 100%. I'm engaged, like, I'm going to be a salesperson. Like, I'm a salesperson as a profession. Like, I take this shit serious. You know what I'm saying? Like, I continually to hone my craft. I'm working on things every day. Like, this is what I do for a living, right? So I go into my day, my life like that. And I think there's a lot of salespeople that are like wishy-washy. They're like, well, I'm going to do this for a little bit. Maybe I'll make some money. Maybe I won't. And then I'm going to find something else to do. Like, if that's how you're, because there's a bad connotation with salespeople. But I think when you get the mindset about like, we're here to help. We're here to be problem solvers. We're here to improve people's lives. We help businesses. We help people, right? And you engage 100%. I think it'll change your life because the opportunities are endless, right? The opportunities are endless. Your income abilities are endless. Your opportunities, the way you are able to build your lifestyle, the way you're able to build your when you work, when you don't work, right? It's all there for you, but you have to be fully engaged 100%, right? And just own it and be proud to be a salesperson, right? That's just how I live my life. So I think that's super important. And then second, yeah, listen, at the end of the day, everybody's a salesperson, right? It doesn't matter. Moms are trying to, sell their kids to make their bed in the mornings and, to eat their breakfast, you know what I'm saying? And eat their vegetables or whatever. And, plumbers have to do the same thing. They have to sell their customers on why they're, better plumbers or whatever. Everybody is somehow trying to communicate an idea, a thought, or get somebody to take on their views, right? So everybody is selling. So if you're engaged in selling and you're learning and you're growing and you're continuing to hone your craft, you're right. Your relationships are going to get better. The way you view the world is going to be different. And you're going to understand that every interaction, one way or another, somebody is trying to sell somebody something. And I think, Grant even wrote a book saying, either sell or be sold, right? And that's true. That's happening in every interaction. Somebody is selling and somebody is either selling and making a transaction or someone's being sold on something, right? So I truly believe in that as well.
Yeah, and our bad ideas got sold to us from someone else, right? And
Yep.
if anyone ever had a bad experience in selling, I always tell them that's because you met someone who is bad at sales.
Yeah.
When people start manipulating and doing this stuff, it's because you're not good at selling. You had to go down that route, and so I fall in love with sales. I have such a deep sense of gratitude for this industry because I know what it does for a business. Without sales, a business could not exist.
Right.
And so making sure that you understand your vital role in the world is incredibly important so that you fall in love with what you do and then you do it better. And you do
Absolutely.
it with a heart of gratitude, right? So thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation. And, I always ask everyone this in the end because for me, what helped me a lot in my journey was just to be able to like quiet the noise. And I've always said this. I've always said that, if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, you're just going to live like how everyone else is living. If you can stand apart, this is what stand alone means. It just means to be a leader in your life, to choose the relationships that you want to have. Don't have default relationships, to choose the conversations that you want to engage in, right? Don't be that person on social media that's just like scrolling and watching. Like, choose the things that you want to put into your mind. And, what would you say is your rare gift to this world? Because I believe we all have like a unique gift. If something happened and you left this world, what would we miss about you? What is your unique quality that makes you stand out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I discovered this, probably 15 or so years ago, but the ability to connect with all kinds of different people, right? I grew up in a very dense, city environment, and it really, it was a challenge then, right? But now looking back on it, it really provided me the opportunity to meet so many different, people of color, race, and, all these different types of people. And now looking back on my career, it's really helped me. So my special, unique gift really is to be able to listen, I can sit down in a boardroom, and I've been in boardrooms with some of the biggest companies in this world, right? And, I can look across and I can sit there, I'm never the smartest guy in the room, I can tell you that, but I can connect with people and find common ground very quickly, whether it's like some person, off the street, or if it's some person who just, graduated Harvard and, has an MBA and he's sitting in that boardroom. And I never, ever waver from the fact that I can provide value no matter what room I'm in because of my past experiences. So yeah, this guy may have an MBA from Harvard, but he doesn't have some of the things that I have that I can bring into that boardroom, whether it's street smarts or whether it's my past experiences, right? He doesn't have those. So the ability to be able to connect quickly and build common ground with people has been one of my greatest assets. And then the confidence to know that no matter what room I'm in, I'm very, very confident that I can provide value, and it's served me well. So I think that's it.
I love that. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so most of my content's on Instagram. So at Anthony Eisenman, it's Anthony and then Eisenman. All of my stuff is on there. There's all kinds of free content. If you click the link in my bio, it'll take you to my website that has all kinds of free videos and books and PDFs and anything that you think you would need to help you level up as a salesperson. There's so much free stuff on there. So go to my Instagram at Anthony Eisman, click the link in the bio, go to my website, watch all the videos. There's all kinds of free stuff. And if you DM me Sabrina, and I'll give you one of my free books, one of my free ebooks. It's on Amazon. We can set you up with something like that as well.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your willing to learn and become a better human, because what I know in just our conversation today, we've impacted someone, and in us impacting someone, we change the world to move in a better direction. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you, and have a blessed day and have an amazing future. Love it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.